Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Asad Lalji. When we were all still struggling with the aftermath of the first wave and the lockdown, Avid Learning started a new journey. A virtual but kaleidoscope journey showcasing the rich cultural heritage of our country. We went to the Pink City, Jaipur, the City of Pearls, Hyderabad, to the untraced peaks of India, to the newly developed cities like Chandigarh, and to some old cities like Lucknow. Today, this journey will take us to the heart of our country, to the city of lights, Varanasi. Welcome to the ninth edition of Cultural Capitals, Future Legacies of India's Cities, brought to you in collaboration with Live History India. Today, we will explore the oldest living city in the world, the city that has more than 100 cultures, a city that has absorbed various conquests, myths, religions, philosophies into one metropolis, a city that's symbolic of the country's diversity crammed into one space, Varanasi. I'm delighted to welcome our speakers for tonight. Hemang Agarwal, fashion and textile designer, Minhal Hassan, senior executive producer, Teamwork Arts, Jeremy Jai Othman, founder Varanasi Walks, Umesh Kabir, educator, spiritual mentor, and researcher of theology, and they will be in conversation with Akshay Chauhan, co-founder and head of research at Live History India. Together, these experts will explore the city's old culture of fine arts and literature, which has continuously enamored great writers like Kabir Das and Munshi Premchand, artists like Gopal Mishra, Ravi Shankar, Bismillah Khan, and still continues to inspire many artists, musicians, and writers even today. They will look at a splendor of the city through architecture, textiles, food, and numerous festivals, classical, folk, and contemporary. For those joining us for the first time, a very special welcome. Please refer to the chat box for more information on Avid Learning, our partners, and speakers for this evening's discussion. Today's discussion will be followed by a 15-minute Q&A in which Akshay will be taking questions, so do keep them posted throughout the session. On that note, over to you, Akshay. Look forward to an exciting session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Asad. And I am so excited to be here and do a panel on one of the oldest cities in the world. I mean, it is just hard to imagine how old and how amazing Varanasi is. Just to give the audience a perspective, Varanasi became a city in what we history lovers and historians call the second wave of urbanization. I mean, that is after Harappa and Mohenjo-daro disappeared and the mainland India was discovering its cities. That's when Kashi, the great city of Kashi, came to light. And Kashi has seen the footsteps of Buddha, Mahavira, right down to some of the greatest poets and scientists of modern India, from Premchand to Professor Meghnad Saha. So, I mean, the Varanasi is just incredible, and this is just me as a outsider, as a Mumbaiker speaking about it. So today I'm so delighted to get some great perspectives on people who have worked in Varanasi, who are in tune with this beautiful culture of this historic city and one of the most incredible in the world. So I'm going to start by asking Minhal, how did you get associated with Varanasi? I mean, how did Varanasi play an important role and you get associated with such an amazing city?
Good evening, Akshay. Thank you, Asad, and welcome to all the panelists, Umesh ji, Jeremy, and Hemang. So, when we started Kabira 6 years ago, the idea behind this that we will go to a city and try and create magic with what Kabir says. We realized in our first few brekkie trips in Banaras that the city has got so much more to offer. Kabir, binds the whole thing together. So as I would say that we became more of a sutradhar to try and, connect with the Kabir Mutt, try and connect with the heritage walks, try and connect with the weavers community. To get all of this thing together was an amazing journey. I mean, when we started, the idea of Kabira was inclusiveness. So, and where else to do it better than Banaras, right? So, started off the oldest city in the world. And we learned so much. I mean, from the Subha Banaras, which is a great experience. You take a boat and figure out how Banaras changes every hour. So for us, it's been actually we got so lucky that the city actually accepted us. 6 years has been a fantastic journey. Meeting so many amazing souls, meeting great musicians. We learned a lot of Banaras through the Kabira festival. The philosophy and the thought process behind this city is actually, how Kabir says that, try and make everybody, so try and get everybody together to collaborate. So like how the musicians collaborate with each other, the city collaborates like that. From those lovely bylanes, the early morning breakfast to those mandir ka ghantas. So the oneness is what makes Banaras. The diversity in the oneness is what makes Banaras the most incredible city. We thought it's gonna be something which any other venue, any other new city, as we do many festivals across. But Banaras to do, and so lucky to be able to do something on the ghats. Imagining with those morning, how the morning start with the sunrise, and we had some music playing on the ghat. The Banaras Gharana of music was just an amazing, fulfillment. Like Dadaras and Thumris and Khayal. It was all great to see them on a lovely little amphitheater or a auditorium in Delhi or Mumbai. But for people like us to see all of this magic happens every hour on the ghat, and people walking and people coming on the boats, and so the city actually created the festival, and we were just so lucky to be able to host the festival there. And it's been 6 years, wonderful journey. All of these guys from Hemang, who represents the great weavers community. We knew weavers only because we thought Kabir was a weaver, to try and weave that, but we realized it's a whole new culture. Jeremy to talk about the heritage walks as part of the festival created so much. We thought it's going to be regular. We have done walks in Delhi, but how it happens in Banaras, in the bylanes, you don't even imagine where you land up from from one corner to the other. You land up in a completely different scenario. So yeah, city has been incredible. The festival has been incredible. Learning through music, learning through amazing culture, and this feeling of collaboration, oneness is what Banaras is for us. And mysticism, the way the city brings on. I think it's been quite a magical journey for us.
Fascinating. So, Jeremy, now I would like to come to you and ask you. Hearing you speak, I can't but help imagine. I'm sure you're associated with the city since the Kashi Khanda of the Skanda Purana, and this is just one of your rebirths. Yes, associated, with the city. So, what does the city mean to?
I didn't intentionally come to Varanasi, so I really didn't know anything about it before I stepped inside. I had been working in Delhi as a social worker in the late 90s, and when I got to Varanasi, the holy city of the Hindus, 1/3 of the population Muslim, having the gharanas of tabla and Kathak highlighted, Benaras Hindu University. And I went to all of these places, but nothing, it's the river that ties it together. And when you go down on the ghats and sit and see the sunrise, as Mina was saying, or you take in evening Ganga Aarti, or just strolling along the riverside, it's just, it feels like you're transported into another world. Like you've gone back in time or somewhere else. People say that Shiva took the city out of the center of the universe and put it on the tip of his trident outside of space and time. Maybe this is the feeling that evokes. So.
Oh, fascinating. So Hemang, now you are radiating like the colors of the Banarasi. So I would like to ask you, how did you get associated with the Banaras city?
Well, Akshay, I was born here, or rather, I should say, I was lucky to be born here. So, been here, spent my early childhood here, then came back. Once I finished my studies, I came back in 2003 to work in the city. And I mean, the city actually, for me, is a very literal reflection of the term Kashi. As you know, Kashi comes from the term Prakash, Prakashi. So the light, which you see everywhere, the light of religion, the light of spirituality, the light of the customs here, the light of culture, but most importantly, the light of knowledge. So everyone you meet here during work, after works, there is something which, being the oldest living city, one of the oldest living cities in the world, you do sense that speaking to the people here, speaking to the old timers here. So yeah, I've been really fascinated. Every single day we have a studio which is right on the ghats of Ganges, and believe you me, I go to my studio every day, and it still gives me goosebumps on a daily basis. So I would just say lucky to be here.
Fascinating. So, Umeshji, now you live in the most fascinating place, and that is the Kabir Mat. I mean, as a Mumbaiker, I can't even imagine, walking in a place like that every day. So, how was your association with the Banaras city?
Thank you, Akshay. Thank you. Actually, it is quite tough to put Banaras in words. So there is one couplet of Kabir where Kabir is talking about love, and he said, "पोथी पढ़ पढ़ जग मुआ पंडित भयानक होए ढाई आखर प्रेम का पढ़े सो पंडित हुए." So actually, that was the Kabir who basically attracted me towards Banaras, and I started my journey to pursue Kabir. Even from our childhood, we were studying about Kabir, how his couplet is attracting us. It's like how important it is for everybody. So when Kabir is raising question and he's asking question to every people that, oh people, why you are reading books? What is use of reading these kind of books if you are unable to understand the meaning of love? So somehow I wanted to understand that love, what Kabir was talking about. So I can say Banaras is motivation for me to ponder at truth, basically to ponder on the truth. So somehow I wanted to understand the philosophy. I wanted to understand the complexities of life, and it was the place Banaras which has given me great dimension to understand the life. So I came here and then I started exploring a lot because I was associated with Kabir. So I got a chance to just see through the eyes of Kabir to the Banaras. Then I understand that basically Banaras is not Banaras. And even the way Kabir explained that life is not life what we think life is. Life is something which is life. So what is that life? Everybody will be able to understand when you got a chance to visit that Manikarnika Ghat, where most of the time people are burning the dead bodies. If you sit over there and you see the dead bodies which people are burning over there, then you will be able to understand, oh, that is the life. So somehow these are the things, but yeah, literature and custom and tradition of Banaras has attracted me a lot, and then I started searching these all things. That's what give me instinct to understand Banaras. That is Banaras.
So before I go to my panelists, I would like to request the audience, in case you have any questions about Banaras city, any specific questions to our panelists, please do put in our chat box and I shall take them up. And I mean, it's always great to have this interactivity and a lively discussion. So please, I would really request all of you to share your thoughts, share your questions in the Q&A box. Now, I would like to go to Minhal. The Banaras of music, the Banaras of dance, of ghats, now it all comes together. I mean, while it has been going for hundreds of years, this whole concept of a cultural festival, where people of all ages, everybody comes, people can showcase their talent and all. Now, that's a very modern but a very interesting experience. So, can you just share with us, your experience of the festival? How was the journey been, and how do you think a cultural festival impacts the landscape, the cultural landscape of a city?
When we started, I mean, as you know, teamwork as an organization has been doing festivals like this across the globe, especially within India and wherever we do it. Banaras has been a very special city. We thought we're gonna do, what do we do? Why do we do Kabir? We realized that we need to capsule it. We can't showcase Banaras in 1 or 2 days. So that's how we were trying to base ourselves and saw the amazingness of how this city accepts this, people coming from Delhi or wherever we come from. We try and set up our base there to do this cultural evening and cultural programs. It's been actually Banaras. I mean, we were just one little drop of water in the kind of cultural history Banaras has got from Rajan Sajan Mishra ji to Pandit Rajan Sajan Mishra ji to Girja Devi to all these maestros who've been there. We thought, why don't we just tie it in and create a smaller capsule for people to come and experience Banaras in the way Kabir, we don't preach Kabir's philosophy because, we have experts like Umesh ji to do that. But we try and give everybody a little flavor of what Banaras has to offer. So the way we program the morning music, it's a smaller capsule for people to come from all across the globe to witness the festival and the city of Banaras with Kabira. And the way how we program it, we realize that Banaras, you can't do anything only in one small 2-hour long concert. So we do a 2-day long festival where we do things like, amazing aarti in the beginning to start the festival. The lovely ghats of Banaras with those colorful flags we put. We don't do anything. I mean, it's mostly the canvas which has been created by, the city Kashi has created with that lovely river, Ganges flowing there. So we try and tie all of these things together. We do morning music. Every morning with the sunrise, we have this lovely musicians from the Banaras Gharana and the musicians from all across India to come and set up their stage and, wake up everybody with these lovely rags and tals in the morning. We try and, put smaller engagement points with getting these delegates from across the globe to come and witness the city through different literature sessions, the heritage walks, and we do it. And as we know, Banaras, I think the food ties in very well as well, where food comes in. So we try and give them a food experience through the festival every day, morning, evening, afternoon, and the evening. So as every hour we've got something for them to offer and try and put all of this into a smaller little bottle in the form of Kabira, and everybody comes and experience it. Once in a year. It's one of the greatest cities to be able to put all of these things together, with Kabir being the main theme, and everybody comes and celebrates Kabir through music, dance, literature, art, food. So it's just the festival has actually become a smaller amalgamation of these amazing art forms, which we just host there, and it happens to be one of the greatest kind of collaborations between different partners, different artists, different delegates, different ghats. So that's how we see it. We try and collaborate and bring everything into the exclusiveness of the cultures and call it the Kabira Festival.
To understand, now you see a lot of tourists come to outside people come to Varanasi to experience the city and all. You also, have organized a lot of festivals across India. So I just wanted to understand, how has been the reaction of the local people to this festival? I mean, do you get a lot of enthusiastic people also who want to explore the city's cultural landscape? How does a cultural festival, help the local people in understanding their own cultural identity?
No, so but in the beginning, we when we met a lot of Banarsis, we realized that it's not going to be an easy task. Banarsis are very, very difficult to please, and all our friends can tell you about this. If they don't like something, they will come and tell you on your face. So we didn't want to go out and figure out something on our own. We met a lot of people. We knew that music is something which is very easy for people to bind in together. It was initially, before we started the festival, we saw a lot of reservation, but when the festival kicked off on ground, I think they all took it and, made us believe that it's their festival. And now it has become, every year, everybody look forward to Banaras. We've got calls and people come there and appreciate us, saying we've had many festivals all across through the year, from being, Sankat Morchan, which is a 110-year-old festival, and many other classical music and dance festivals. But Kabira has got this very special place in everybody's heart, because we tried to reach to them with smaller, steps. We didn't want to go there and say, we have come. We wanted to take everybody along. So we worked with a lot of weavers initially. We worked with the locals to, set up the food. Every time we have a lot of local musicians. So I think the festival in year dot gave us, became a great host, and all the people from being at Asti Ghat to now moving it to different ghats, we have had a really wonderful time. From being very, very scared in the beginning that because everybody knows music in and out there, right? So you can't go there and do something, because they will come to you and tell you, this is not what Banaras, wants or deserves. But we were very lucky, because we had a blessing of a lot of these, maestros who came in and helped us, from Pandit Sadhan Mishra ji to Shubha Mudgal ji to, Kaushiki ji to Malini. They all made the festival amazing, and the audience just took it into, their arms and said, this is our festival. So now we feel that we're just hosting it. It's a festival of Banaras. And we are just, as we say, Sutradhar. So we're just putting it there. Every year we get a chance to celebrate Kabir with the people of the city of Banaras.
So, talking about the people of Varanasi being hard to please, and one of my favorite books on the city is Kashinath Singh's Kashi Ka Assi, and it is set against this chai shop on the Assi Ghat, and it's literally watching the city move by. So I want to ask Jeremy, I mean, you have been taking these Varanasi walks, and it is something, these walks are something which is very close to my heart, because I believe in the concept of mohalla history, where the history is not always in the great monuments and the very popular places, but in the mohallas. So, Jeremy, can you please take us through the fascinating by-lanes of Varanasi, and what do you think makes it so special?
Well, I'm from the US. I'm a guest of the city as well. I'm a Gora, foreigner, Videshi. Every day someone will ask me as if I'm a tourist, even though I've lived there 21 years now. But I went around to some of the bigger temples myself, and then I went to the tourism office and asked, I heard there's the house of Bharatendu Harishchandra Chowdhury in a lane somewhere. This is before internet is so big, nobody had smartphones. They said, no, we take boat rides, we do city tour, we go on a walk from Manikarnika to Golden Temple. You'll have to find someone else. And I started to delve into who knows about Benaras. And many of you may be familiar with Diana Eck's book, City of Light, as a foreigner doing her PhD thesis on the city of Benaras. And I also somehow got acquainted with Professor Rana P.B. Singh ji of Banaras Hindu University Geography Department. And he became a bit of a mentor to me in understanding the city. And we started to go to different sites, more hidden places, through the gullies, in the lanes. And, you can walk right down Tateri Bazaar, and up there's Bharatendu's house. And you could even meet members of his family that are still around, people that are members of INTAC as well. And it's just been a joy, it's like layers and layers and layers. I mean, I still find places to this day, after starting this walking tour company back in 2007, just to explore for myself, basically. And I don't know what else to say. It's incredible. There's a
maybe we can look at some lovely visuals. From
there's a
the
slide
city.
that
Yes.
tells a little bit about what I thought. I consider myself lucky to live in Varanasi for now most of my adult life. I came to India when I was 25. I encountered its rich narrative as the center of the universe. Began physically exploring the riverside and the alleys. It became very intriguing. Even more fascinating were the people of Benaras who comprise the entirety of India. I mean, you go to one place and there's Nepali Koti. You go to another place, there's Kamakya Devi from Assam. You go to another place, there's Marwadis, there's Punjabis, there's Gujaratis in Gopal Mandir area. So really fantastic to see the whole fabric of people there. And some famous personalities as well. And we'll see that in the next few slides. I got to experience Masti and Mauj of these extremely spiritual people, the fun and carefreeness of the Banarasi, who is very spiritual as a person, but filled with mischief also, and great fun-loving. Here you see a picture of Pandit Ram Sahai and Sanjay Sahai in London, and coming to Benaras for a Sankat Mochan music festival. Is his descendant, founded the Benaras Gharana of Tabla. This is a great thing to explore in the city. There's a picture of Bharatendu Harish Chandra Chowdhury as well, starting by translating Merchant of Venice and eventually becoming a nationalist poet, thinking of a way to escape from colonialism through language and helping to codify Hindi language as we know it today with his literature and being the father of modern Hindi literature. So those were interesting stories and personalities to come across. You can move to the next slide. Here we see a weaver, and I'm sure we're going to hear more about that. But just understanding the relationships of the city, how generally Muslim women weren't wearing a sari, and you had a community that's making a product that wasn't for its own consumption. So the symbiotic relationship of Hindu and Muslim in the city, very beautiful to me. Also through music with pundits and ustads. You see a very colonial looking building. All of this was given by money from Maharajas. I'm not sure how many coins the East India Company coughed up for it, but this was the new Queen's College after it moved from 1791 when Jonathan Duncan had proposed a Sanskrit university to Lord Cornwallis, and now today known as Sampurnanand Sanskrit Vishwavidyalaya since 1974. So a beautiful building and a beautiful story. We can go on. This is to yoga. So maybe if you have some more questions, otherwise I can talk about yoga as well.
Yes. So I was actually coming to that. Like, I remember having a chat with you, and it was just amazing to learn that Banaras has such a rich yoga tradition. Like, while generally yoga is associated with Mysore, it is associated with the Bihar, the Munger school, the Haridwar school. But and no surprise, I mean, I don't know why it should surprise people. The fact is that Varanasi is one of the most preeminent centers of yoga in the country. So if you can tell us about that.
Yeah, I found it quite interesting because when you look at the texts about yoga, you generally are hearing about these texts having something to do with Krishnamacharya, with this modern yoga that came about in the 20th century. You look back to Patanjali, you're not quite sure where he is moving around, though there is a site associated with him in Benaras called Nagkuan. I mean, it's hard to say where was yoga, But if Shiva is Adi Yogi, then he's the founder of yoga. If Benaras is his city, then Benaras is the originator of yoga or the center of yoga. Where that went, we're not quite sure. Gorakhnath appears, and even I enjoyed to go to the Kabir Chowra and see the trident of Gorakhnath is inside the Kabir facility there. Beautiful little tidbit if you want to follow on Gorakhnath's footsteps. But then there's Lahiri Mahasai, who eventually teaches Yogananda through his discipleship of one of his disciples, Giri, Yukteswar Giri.
Yeah. So,
And
Jerry, I wanted to ask you,
anyhow,
is it,
sorry.
no, I just wanted to ask you, is it still practiced in the city? These yogic traditions, these yoga schools, is it still a very vibrant, thriving culture among the ascetics, the sadhus?
It's not as you would understand it, or me as a foreigner in a modern sense. No, it is locked and hidden in Guru Shishya Parampara of the Akaras. And it's not the type of kind of capitalist typical consumption of yoga mats and outfits that you would associate with a modern studio, even in India today. It's much more meeting a guru or someone from those great traditions and developing a personal relationship. It's very hard to discover. So I had started a website myself to explore that called banarasyoga.com, trying to take people out, and in that slide, then you see some pictures of what we do on the riverside. So.
Oh, fascinating. Yeah. So before I go to Himang and the story of the fabulous Banarasi weaves, I would like to tell our viewers a little bit of a snippet from history, which I discovered when I was doing the series on the history of the weaves of India. Now, very interestingly, if you see all the great saris, the Kanchi sari, the Paithani, the Banarasi, now they all come from these great religious centers. Now, what happened was when Hinduism was evolving and the temples were being built, this is 200 years CE, and there's this whole concept of Anna Bhog and the Vastra Bhog, which was offered to the gods. So what used to happen is the pilgrims used to come and commission these weaves as offerings to God. And over time, the weavers settled in these religious places, and rich traditions started thriving in these cities. And the finest example of that is Kanchi and Banaras. So Himang, you are an inheritor of such a rich tradition going back perhaps 2,000 years. So if you can please take our audience through your story of the Banarasi sari and how do you see it evolve, the weaving community. It'd be great to get your perspectives.
Akshay, in most ways, the textile weaving traditions of Banaras are also reflective of the city. We believe that the city is a melting pot of different cultures. Especially those of mostly towards Hindu religion, but we see all kinds of, whether you're talking about you just walk around the city and you will find on the ghats, there are ghats which were made by the Peshwas, you'll find ghats made by the Raja Nepals from south. So it's always been a melting pot. And the same way, Banaras weaving, the way we know it, we tend to think that Banaras also would be one of the oldest weaving traditions of the world. But the weaving which we associate with Banarasi, the Banarasi form, is actually one of the newest traditions. So originally, as we know of Banaras, it used to be a cotton weaving center. There is the story that when the bodies of Buddha, of Kabir, were draped in clothes, cotton cloth, which was fine as a muslin cotton cloth, which was woven in Banaras. But the current Banarasi school of weaving actually traces its origin to Central Asia. We tend to think it's Iran, but it's not. It's basically Bukhara. So there used to be a very famous master craftsman known as Ustad Bahauddin Bukhari, who basically devised this sort of Naksha Jala system, which actually came, you can say, gained prominence in Banaras. But it started from Central Asia towards Iran and came to India during the Mughal reign, firstly to Ahmedabad. And was actually the Mughals who set up karkhanas at so many different places in the country. And Banaras obviously was one of those karkhanas, and that's how it has evolved. So it only has a history of I would say close to 200 years. But having said that, Banaras as of today is world's last bastion of handloom textiles which are still being produced at an industrial scale. Anywhere else in the world you go, whether you go to places like Japan, whether you go to places like South and Central America, these weaving traditions are only remaining within studios, But in Banaras, you see it. You walk around the cities and you'll hear the sounds of looms. So it's still a weaving tradition which is living here, and it has evolved over time. Definitely, there is some bit of, the reason is that there was obviously patronage from the royal households. For some certain period of time, there was also patronage from the rulers of the land, who were the Britishers that time. But largely, of last 50, 80 years, Banaras has come to symbolize the wedding traditions of the country or the festival traditions of the country. So it hasn't really been as much associated with, so to say, the temple cultures of the land. But yes, and the good thing is that the way city of Banaras has kept on reinventing itself, every few centuries, the weaving also has been reinventing itself, and Banaras continues to be one of the strongest, so to say, centers of textiles in the world and fashion as far as India is concerned. So I believe it also tells you about, you take the old with the new. The weaving traditions don't just deploy the old age tools and looms. You have some of the modern techniques coming in which assist the form of handloom weaving which we know Banaras to be. So in all, it's a great, it's a great melting pot of different weaving traditions of the world. You will find every single, for example, you would hear of Banaras Tanchois. The Tanchoi actually traces its origin to, so to say, China, and some parts of Central Asia. We hear of Banarasi Jamdanis, or you might have heard of, the Nilambari, the Shwetambaris. They trace their origin from either Murshidabad, which is East India, or towards Tanda and Awadh. So all sort of weaving traditions have been perfected in Banaras. Anybody who is, a textile academic would tell you that what Banaras has been able to produce in the last 300 years has been the most remarkable textiles. So truly, the art and the skill which has remained with the artisans of this city is beyond my words can express, and that is the reason that the art and the skill is still alive and kicking.
So, coming to my next question. For that, we'd love to see some nice visuals play while we speak. Through when I was doing research, I realized across India, the weavers, the actual people who are weaving, are from, like we see Kabir here in this picture, are from very humble backgrounds. They live in small bastis. They don't have access to, neither there is financial liquidity nor there is access to international aesthetics. And generally now in this day and age, especially last 20 or 30 years, it's all about these designers coming in and working with the weavers to help them update with the times, update the colors, the palette, changing tastes of the people. So how in your experience, how is that tradition changing? This interplay between a weaver and the designers.
Definitely, the man behind the loom, we have to think about that person itself. In fact, we can see the Kabir slide where Kabir is depicted as a weaver, which he was. And one of his most famous poems is Jhini Jhini Bini Chadariya Kahe Katana Kahe Ki Bharni Kaun Tar Se Bini Chadariya. And it then goes on to explain that God himself is actually a weaver who's weaving our bodies, who's weaving in the entire world around us. So that is the kind of sanctity, which was given to the tradition of weaving and to the person behind who we call as a weaver. So definitely there is great level of skill required in weaving, and I definitely would agree that the kind of pedestal which probably should, this art form should have been put on and the practitioners should have received hasn't been coming. There's also a reason because the art has been commodified in last few decades, where weavers have literally become or been treated as people who are producing textiles rather than rather than artisans or craftsmen. So there's definitely this tussle. There's this tussle of handloom versus power loom, the tussle of designers versus looms. But I think so that it's not a zero sum game, Akshay. There is definitely a role of each one. The design. I mean, design is very integral to the times we live in, right? So, and a design intervention can only be made by somebody who is delving into that field. Weaving at the end of the day is about mastery over a tool. It's a skill. It's not as it's only incidental. We when we look at the Banarsi Bhutas, the paisley's, we tend to think that is Banarsi, but we couldn't be farther from the truth. Design is very incidental to this craft. It's only that it has been associated with it for the last 200 years. So we think that the Banaras weaving is only about the brocades and the jals and the bhutas and the paisleys. But ultimately, this is the perfected form of weaving, and it can produce anything under the sun for the entire world. So that's where the designers come in, wherein they can bring a fresh perspective to to this craft. They can reinvent the kind of motifs. They can reinvent the textures, and it's very, very important that the weaver and the designers work together. So that's basically also kind of what we have been trying to do, in my eponymous label, where we take the skills which are required to create your grandmom's traditional Banarsi sari, but also produce something which is very, very relevant and very, very contemporary to anybody in the world. So, and I think so. It's a very, very equal marriage when we talk about artisans, weavers, and designers. It's just that we have to work together in coordination. It hasn't really been coming or hasn't happened the way it should be happening. But I still think so that that there is great to make this city the foremost textile center, not just for the country but for the world.
Thank you. Those great perspectives. So now I'd like to come to Umeshji next, and it's just incredible how a city has played an important role in evolution of a language, and to imagine that Hindi, as we know today, has been born in Banaras. Very few people realize that till say 1890s, 1870s, and 1890s. I mean, the Nagari, the Nagari script, the script of the cities, and Hindi was spoken in these limited urban areas, and it was Bharatendru Harish Chandra, the doyen of Hindi literature, and other greats, and the Nagari Pracharan Sabha at Varanasi, which played a very important role in defining what we know as Hindi today. I mean, Hindi is perhaps one of the youngest languages in India, and the mother of Hindi languages, perhaps Varanasi. So, Umeshji, please do share your perspectives on the city, on the city, and the great cultural personalities who have shaped it.
Basically, when we go through the Kabir, then you will find certain sentence when Hazare Prasad Dwivedi, who is a very famous writer, he had said, Kabir is a dictator of language. It is very important to understand. And if you go through the language of Kabir, you will say it's a kind of Panchmel Khichdi. Panchmel Khichdi means he has taken so many words from different places. If you read Kabir, then you will find he had used Rajasthani regional language and Chhattisgarhi. Then he has taken some Bhojpuri also, then Urdu, and then some words of Hindi. So the very important thing, I think, language, when you talk about language, Banaras is playing immense role to develop language like a Hindi. You see the Bharatendru Harish Chandra, who said, Nij Bhasa Unnati Ahe. Like the language what you are speaking, that is the language which leads you to the progress. So Bharatendru Harish Chandra is from Varanasi, and if you got a chance to visit Varanasi, then you will find Nagari Pracharani Sabha is there, who is quite old, and he has it has played a very important role in development of language. And very important thing, when you go through the Hindi history of Hindi literature, then you will find the first language, which is Sanskrit, and after Sanskrit, because when Sankaracharya was there, then then everybody was speaking in Sanskrit. But after that, when Mahavira come, then people are speaking a different language. That is Prakrit. So after Sanskrit, there is a Prakrit, and then after Prakrit, when Buddha came, then it was Pali. So after Pali, there is another session that is called Apabhrans, like a mixture of all that. And then again, then Hindi came. You see the development: the Sanskrit, then Prakrit, then Pali, then Apabhrans, and then Hindi. So basically, Hindi came from Sanskrit. And in Banaras, you will find different people from different places. It is a place where everybody comes. So, if you are in Banaras, you will find people are coming from Bihar, they are speaking Bhojpuri, people are coming from Canada, like Kerala, people are coming from Chhattisgarh, people are coming from Rajasthan. So when they are collaborating with each other, they are somehow developing the language. And uh, when there is a BHU, it is playing great role because many foreigners are coming to learn a language which is Hindi, and because they want to understand the Banaras only, that is why they want to learn. And then there is another university, that is Sanskrit University, Sampurnanand Sanskrit University. So there people are coming to learn Sanskrit. So somehow when people are learning Sanskrit, they are learning Hindi also. It is like immense pleasure for us that in Banaras there are 4 universities: BHU, then Sampurnanand, and then Kashi Vidyapeeth, and then another Tibetan. And everywhere you will find there is a one center where people are learning language, and that is Hindi. So Banaras.
So I wanted to ask you the Kabir. I mean, you touched upon the Kabir, and for us, the people not from that whole setup. It's for us. We know Kabir ke dohe. So we would like to know how much of Kabir's life, Kabir's teachings were influenced by the city that he lived in. I mean, how do you see Banaras having an influence on the life and teachings of Kabir?
It has. Actually, in Banaras, if you just see the time of Kabir, then you will be able to understand. In that time, there was a lot of complexities. The first thing which is very important to understand, that our society has been divided in 4 castes, like Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. And you may understand that Banaras is a city of religion. And here there were people who were saying, like, who were discriminating with other people. It was a time, I'm not blaming, I'm just trying to fetch that scenario which was when Kabir was. So it is very important, Kabir, because Banaras is basically a revolution. If you come Banaras and if you just sit besides the ghats, you will be able to feel that tranquility over there. If you go to the temple, you will be able to feel that a peace over there. And if you go through the Rani Lakshmi Bai place, then you will feel that kind of revolution also. So Kabir was there. And so somehow the language, somehow that fearlessness, basically Kabir learned from here only. You see the life of Kabir, he basically, the Niru and Nima were the foster parents. They were not the real parents. Because Kabir was like, nobody knows about the caste of Kabir. But Niru and Nima look after Kabir, and they were weaver. That is why Kabir is weaver. Still, this is a mystery. This is a mystery who was Kabir. So many people are saying different things. So what I wanted to say, if you see the life of Kabir, then you will be able to understand all the revolution Kabir had learned from here.
So, we have a question actually from Sudila Patil, one of our viewers, and she asks, is there a place in Varanasi where you can experience the life of Kabir, Doha recitation? Is there an institute where people who want to explore the life of Kabir can come and explore?
Yes. I'm quite lucky that I am living at the same place where Kabir had spent his whole life of 120 years. So whosoever wanted to come, they can come at Kabir Mutt. It is situated in city only. So they can come here and they can stay for some time. And if they are unable to come, you can see also visual. These visuals belong to the ashram only. So You can come here in the ashram, you can stay here, but before the if you want to stay in the ashram, you need to uh, give prior information, and afterward you can come, and there we recite Kabir, we teach Kabir. And right now I'm also taking so many different online classes also for people from different places, so people can connect over there also if they are unable to come. So there is an institution, you can say, where I'm living, it is an institution of Kabir. Whatever you are listening, whatever you are reading about Kabir, that all that couplets, all that that writings had been written, produced from here only. This is the authentic place. So anybody can come here, they can stay here, they can learn Kabir, they can practice Kabir, they can feel Kabir. And one another place, because in Banaras there are two places which is quite famous for Kabir. The first place, which is Leher Tara. Leher Tara is a birthplace of Kabir. Birthplace of Kabir means the Niru and Nima found Kabir in Leher Tara only, and afterward they brought Kabir here where I am living. This is Kabir Choramat. So that is the birthplace of Kabir, and after that, this place where I am living, Kabir Choramat, this is the place where Kabir had spent his whole life. And if somebody is interested to come, they can come and see. There are two temples. The one temple is actually made, which name is Bijak Temple. So Bijak Temple, the Bijak is a main book of Kabir, where you will find all the couplets of Kabir. So Bijak means the sacred knowledge. So that book name is Bijak, and on that book name only there is a one temple, which is Bijak Temple, and there is another temple which is Samadhi Temple. And then, like where Kabir used to sit, that place is still protected, so people can come over there. They can feel the liveness of Kabir over there. So everybody is welcome here. They can come and they can feel.
Thank you. We'll definitely love to come and experience Kabir. Now, I would like to go to my favorite topic, and that is the cuisine. And Hemang, since you're from Varanasi, what is the must have, like 3 dishes which every visitor must have in Varanasi? What would they be?
Well, actually, firstly, obviously, everybody who comes to Banaras comes with, with their gastronomical senses, in turbo mode. So I would say that food in Banaras generally is quite delicious everywhere around, and every hole in the wall place which you may not find on TripAdvisors and all the blogs, even they offer you, great taste summed up meals. So if I had to name 3 things, definitely, I would say Nimish or Malayo, which is basically served in the winters. It's a sweet delicacy. It's a must have for anybody visiting the city. There is a dish called Chuda Mutton, which is again, most of the foods here which you see are for the winters, but Chuda Mutton is again a great local delicacy of Banaras. You don't really get a parallel anywhere else. And third, I would say the chaat, obviously, which is, it's a must-have. All around the city, you will find small stalls, small hole-in-the-wall places offering great golgappas and chaat. So these 3 are just one of the very, very long list of Banarsi foods which you can't miss when you have to.
But is there a place in the city where you have like local food, what a normal Banarasi family would have for breakfast or lunch?
Absolutely. I mean, every place the places actually which are famous are not just famous because of the people coming in from outside come and experience, but these are the places where people living in the city like me, Jeremy, when Minhal comes, Umeshji, we all throng to these places. In Tateri Bazaar, you will find Ram Bandar, Kachori Jalebis in the morning, at Dina and Keshri Chaat Bandar behind Chowk, Nimish at what we call Chowkhamma, Markande. So these are the places where actually you will find locals having a longer line than the tourists coming in. So Banaras doesn't differentiate.
Jeremy, do you want to add to that your list of personal favorites?
I would say the number one thing to look for on the streets of Banaras is Bati Choka, or Litti Choka if you're from Bihar or outside the city. But in the city, Bati Choka, wow, made with ghee, a dough ball of maida with sattu, like chickpea spiced in the middle, and then cooked on cow dung, and then put on the coals, cold potato bangan type of chutney with it, and then the balls are dipped in ghee and crushed, and then you eat it with the chutney. Wow, it's fantastic.
Oh, fascinating. Minhal, you want to add your list of favorites?
I think Hemang took mine, but I would still say I think the thandai is one of the best things which you don't get on the street so easily. So you need to know right people to get you the right thandai wala. And I happen to know all these wonderful people, and they've told me about thandais are great. Nimesh Malayo is something which we from Delhi, we thought we used to compare it with the Daulat ki chaat, but it's something else. And the other thing is Nimona, which is the green peas, and that's something again you get it in the winter. So I think these are the top three things apart from the chaat and different pakoras and as he said bati choka, but these are the top three for me.
Umesh ji, what are your list of favorite foods of Banaras?
One thing which is very important. Most of the time, whenever we are free in the morning, we would love to start our morning. That is kachori. The Banarsi kachori, which has like something, they put some pithi, like some dal, and then they made it, and it is like hing ki kachori. It's so delicious. And then jalebi, obvious. We can't forget the jalebi. After eating those kachoris, if you just taste the jalebi, wow! And sometimes in Banaras, people put some curd on the jalebi, and even I like that gulab jamun, that gulab jamun with dahi. It's wow.
Just to add here, Akshay, obviously you would know that a lot of, like Jeremy, there are a lot of people staying in Banaras who do not originally belong to Banaras, and that includes Japanese, that includes Israelis, that includes Italians, Germans who have set up, and many of them are actually have also opened up small restaurants. You'll be surprised. I have taken my friends from Germany and Italy to some of those eateries in Banaras, and they told me that they've never tasted an apple pie like that. So, and in their life, so it's not just that Banaras offers you great Indian or local cuisine. Banaras offers you the entire gamut. It's just that you have to let your feet do the walking and explore these small places.
So, just to add to that, that's a very interesting point, because even the finest Israeli food, which I think I have ever had, even compared to Europe or any place, is in Pushkar. I mean, in Rajasthan. I mean, it's just incredible. And, some of the cuisine you have in these dharamshala, I mean, it's incredible. So great. I mean, fascinating. So now, I would like to come to a bit more serious topic, and that is, Minhal, I would like to ask you this. Stereotyping of a city. Now, ghats, say the music, dance, the saris. There is a lot of criticism that temples. It's also a stereotype which the TV channels like to show. Every year you see the Kumbh Mela and all. But what about the young of the city? I mean, what if somebody young wants to have a rock music concert or street dancing or those kind of things? So, do you think the city can go beyond? I mein, because that's what we see in Jaipur, because there's a lot of young from Jaipur who are moving to very modern forms of music, art, culture. Or do you think that whole compartmentalization, that Banaras means equal to this, ghats, temples, so and so, so and so, so and so. So is there a space for the young of Varanasi who want to explore street dancing or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. I think when we started off, we saw Banaras from this angle. We thought, let's do Baithak and let's do music which pleases everybody. But every evening, I mean, you can ask Hemang, he stays there at the Asti Ghat. You see the BHU kids there. They're jamming, they're writing, they're painting. I haven't seen them dance yet, but I remember them seeing dance when we got a rock folk Kabir band called Neeraj Aryas's Kabir Cafe, and they all take all of this. I mean, the youth want things which are slightly more contemporized. I mean, even if it's a classical music, they would try and add their angle. And classical music is not boring or old. I think it's quite what youth wants right now. A lot of young musicians are coming out of the classical music scene, but I think definitely, I don't know about rock yet, to be explored in Banaras. But I think definitely a new contemporarized version of these fusion or collaborations between different art forms of music be it a Carnatic music collaborating with some folk artists, be it some rock musician collaborating in creating music on Kabir. I think there's a great scope. We have been experimenting it. We've been working with a lot of students from who's been learning the music in the at the BHU. They all come back and say we definitely do study flute or tabla, but they're very happy to explore possibilities of collaboration with trying to get into this 2020 music, or trying to be more into the world music kind of a genre rather than just sticking to one specific classical music. So there is a brilliant scope, keeping the roots alive, but trying to cater to a larger audience, with youth being the most important part. And whenever you go to Banaras, I think one of the evenings you should try and just take a walk from Tulsi Ghat to Asti Ghat, and you will see the kind of young musicians sit there. Unfortunately, they're all been singing Bollywood, but I wish they could tomorrow start singing Elvis Presley or any Bob Marley or something. But
yeah. So I would like to come to Hemang, because the same thing also applies to fashion, because today with access to smartphones, I have seen even in places like, say, Alwar or Gwalior or Jhansi, the kids, they know exactly what fashion is popular in New York and what's happening on Instagram. So how do you see the taste change of the city? And especially when we saw some of your designs, we've incorporated the Banarasi fabric into, it doesn't have to be a sari, it can be anything. So this whole contemporization of the Banarasi fabric, how do you see that happening?
Well, actually, obviously, the technology, the Instagrams, the Facebooks, they definitely have made things more accessible. It doesn't take, long for fashion to percolate down from the ramps of Paris to Bombay to a city like Banaras or even smaller cities. So definitely that has changed, because, it's also bring about a phenomenon of what is known in art fraternity as the fast fashion, which is actually antithesis to the kind of crafts which we, because craft is not about, is slower than slow fashion. We don't work based on, we don't do 6 seasons a year. Things actually, the classics here have been running from centuries through generations. So the strange thing is that many times, the only problem I have is that things are becoming very visual oriented in the world we live in, because everything you look at on the screen and everything looks good, So for lack of a better term, I would say that this is the age of celebration of mediocrity, because on screen everything looks great, but crafts work exactly the opposite way. The craft is not about the visual which you see, but it's about the processes which go behind, the hard work, the skill required. From on a screen, a digital printed textile is going to look exactly the same as a hand woven sari, which took, donkeys years to make. So there are obviously a lot of things, a lot of positive things which technology brings to the table, which is basically also the artisans getting, exposed to newer fashions, newer technologies, newer trends. But at the same time, it's somehow not, making one realize. I mean, when I say one, I'm basically talking about people who are just on the surface. Anybody who delves deep would understand, that how a handmade product, whether it's about hand woven or whether it's about handcrafted, it's so much more than just what you see. So this is, I think, so this is a never-ending story, and the age we live in, obviously, we have to, accept that, okay, technology is here, it's in our faces, and we have to live with it. So, but at the same time, crafts will never be about just the visual. So as somebody who works in a city which is so steeped in crafts, I don't think so that, the ramp walks or the Instagrams or, all the, so to say, newer technologies are helping people realize, that craft is very, very different from the kind of consumption. The speed of making a craft textile is very, very different from the kind of consumption speed which they are looking for.
But how do you cope? Because this is the new normal. This is the world. The world is changing. So how do you see, say, a weaver of a Banarasi, or the people who traded in Banarasi, who designed the Banarasi? How do you see them coping with the changing times?
Well, basically, actually, right now, the strange thing is that both these, the handloom sector or the handcrafted sector, and so to say, the power loom and the mill sector are vying for the same scope. And as long as they are both fighting for the same pie, it just won't work, that all this tussle is going to continue, which I believe is so strange, because I do not believe that handloom has to, make anything which power loom or mills can make. I think so should be made by the power looms and the mills. Handloom has to remain within, right now in the times we are living in a much smaller, so to say, space, which is basically only and only artisanal textiles. As long as everything which comes out of these handlooms, is of a quality which would make a lady or a man buy it and keep it as an heirloom. All of us, I mean, there are 6 billion people in the world, so, and many of them can afford artisanal textiles. So I think so it will only happen if we do not start mass producing or commodifying things which are coming out of these handlooms. As long until the time we do it, this tussle will continue, and in this tussle, handloom is never going to win.
Okay. Oh, so Jeremy, now I would like to come to a question. We are getting a lot of questions from our audience in this topic. So I would like to bundle it together. And, again, it is related to this old Banaras versus the new Banaras. And, in the last few years, we have seen a lot of developments taking place. The Kashi Vishweshwar corridor. Now, one side of the debate says that, you have to preserve the old structures, the old the gullies, the temples, the character of the mohallas. But then there is the counter argument which says, well, you have to move on with the times. I mean, when the ghats were built, or in the 16th century, they were built as per the 16th century standards. They were modern for 16th century. So, how do you see this Banaras evolving, especially with this new developments taking place in the city?
It's a very complex question and would be a very long answer, but I can attempt a little bit of it because there's a lot of factors in there. There's factors of government, politics, city government, national government. What do the local people, the stakeholders want? Those who sold their homes in that area. What about the dangers of crowd crush? I myself many times in the gullies of Benaras and felt like nervous of my life due to the crush of the crowd, and so some alleviation of that was needed as well. How this type of vikas or development is done is a question as well. Who's making those decisions? So it's all very complex. But I have my foot in both worlds in some way. You mentioned before about music. I myself was enjoying listening to Kumar Gandharva's rendition of Pardesi Panchi Baba by Kabir. And then it was sung by Vijay Shardesh Mukh. And I took that and reproduced it and put it into techno, into digital music. And I play that in the bar in the cantonment of Benaras, and to a great response of people that maybe wouldn't be listening to that normally. In the same way, though I do like the old way of Benaras, I wish those alleys, there would have been a different solution to that project. But sometimes development is unstoppable, and it's just a social process you have to accept because the local people are the ones that would have had to stood up against that project if they didn't believe in it. And they chose to sell their houses. So my take on it is that it's process, and myself, especially as a male white foreigner, can be easily identified as a post-colonial, pushing my American ideas into things. So I'm very, very careful on how I look at those type of things. But that's I just take it as a part and parcel of what's happening. It's a part of Benaras, and it's going to be there. So how do you respond to it, with negativity or with positivity? So I usually tend to take a positive route.
So Umeshji, what are your thoughts on this whole debate about old Benaras and the new Benaras? While some say the ghats and the character of the city should be preserved, others say that it has to change with the changing times. So what do you think?
So as Jeremy said, it's a quite complicated question and answer also. But I think so. Uh, Sometime for city it is needed, but we would have to be very careful how much we are compromising with it. If we talk about, like, most of the time people take example of Vishwanath temple, but there are certain personal experiences. One of my friend is living quite close to that temple. His house was in the narrow street, and I think in his family there was 14 or 16 people, and they were living only in 2 rooms. But he was quite close to the temple, and he was very happy. But when people started making that corridor, the government has offered him a lot of money, and afterward now he has purchased a beautiful house, set it outside, but he's not happy. Now we need to understand, he's living in beautiful house, and on one part he's happy because he's a beautiful house, but on the other part he's not happy because he's not living quite close to Vishwanath temple. So it is you just understand the point of view, then you will be able to understand what people think is living quite close to the temple. But yes, if you consider the other factors in Sawan Mass, in Sawan month, so much like a lot of crowds come from outside, and if you see the situation in that time, you will say, but why they are going to temple? What is reason behind it? So much crowd is there, and it is unmanageable. You can't manage. But right now, if you see the corridor, I think so it's quite beautiful, and they are having capacity to manage it also. So on this point, I'm just comparing. Yeah, if we talk about the government, then I don't want to speak anything about government. But yeah, I think uh, change is necessary for some time. But yeah, we need to be very careful how much are we compromising. That's what I would love to say.
Fascinating. So, this has been one of the most interesting sessions, because generally there are a lot of questions from the audience, but this time I see that audience is sharing their experience. And there's a lot of sharing happening in the Q&A box, where everybody is sharing their own what Banaras means to them. And this is what perhaps makes Banaras so special, that it just connects with everybody, and somebody finds a meaning in the city. So I would like to request, beginning with Minhal, to have concluding remarks on how do you see. I mean, now this is the post-COVID times. We live in an extraordinary time. So how do you see the Banaras and the culture of Banaras evolving, say, 20 years from now, 50 years from now?
I think the city will remain rooted. I think that is what the key I have noticed in terms of how the people treat it. Obviously, infrastructurally, you will see a great change, which we have seen over the last 5-6 years, and I'm sure all the people living there have seen it over the last many years. The river is getting cleaner. I mean, and I'm sure it's going to be much clean, and we would see the Ganges dolphins at some point. But I think culturally it's going to get more richer, because the younger generation is now, as they evolve and get into the Instagram mode, they are going to get way more connected to the heritage of Banaras. I think the things will evolve, but the city will continue to be much rooted with all the beautification, and I hope they continue to remain slightly more. That rustic feel of Banaras should remain there. That's my wish. But I think the most important thing would be that people in Banaras over the last hundreds of years have continued to believe that there is a Banarasiyat, which is the style of living it. And if they don't want to do something, they don't want to do that. Even if you offer them money, even if you offer them anything lucrative, they'll be like, "Abhi nahi hoga." So it's like pretty simple. It's not like Delhi, Bombay. I think that attitude continues to be part of Banaras. But I see the youth taking over and evolving with the traditions being kept in mind and strong.
Fascinating. Jeremy, your concluding remarks on the future of Banaras and the culture?
Well, some people were giving some very nice poetry, so I can join in. Ran san sidi sanyasi inse bache to sevai Kashi. widows, bulls, stairs, saints. Escape from all of these things and you'll reach the true Kashi. Because the widow could possibly take some virtue from a male. The bull, though it's Shiva's pet, his vehicle, he can gore you on the streets. The steps leading to the Ganga are for salvation, but you'll slip and crack your head, and the holy man will steal all your money. So whoever wrote this in Benaras, whether between Kabir and Bharatendu Harish Chandra, this captures the style of Benaras humor. But it's actually highly insightful that we focus a lot on the externals when actually there's things that are much deeper rooted that are the true Benaras. And if we get away from these external things a bit, then we can really enjoy what Benaras is all about as well. So
That's really beautiful. Hemang?
Actually, see, it's very easy and very romantic to think that the city will be will stick to some point in history and will remain what it was, But and as we all know, that's not going to happen. It's a living city. It's a city where people get up, they go to work, they come back, they're eating. So the city will obviously move on. The city needs to move on because it's more than 2 million people live in this city. But at the same time, because the great advantage which Banaras has is that it has so many different layers. So when you talk about Kashi and Banaras, which are basically cities only in our minds, the city is actually Varanasi. I think so Kashi and Banaras will remain their flavor, will retain their flavor, will continue to prosper because even the youths of today, you'll find a lot of people who are very connected to the roots which we have. They really care for this city. They say that you can take a man out of Banaras, but you can't take Banaras out of a man. So just to quote one more couplet inspired by Jeremy, a lot of young people also have that feeling that Chana Chabaina Ganga Jal, Jo Kurve Kartar, Kashi Kabahu Na Chhodiye Vishwanath Darbar. So I think so the city will live on, and at the same time the city will also keep on progressing.
Okay, great. Umeshji, your concluding remarks on the future of Banaras?
I would say Kabir is not going to change. Vishwanath is not going to change. Even Mahabir and Buddha and Premchand and Talang Swami will be here, and he will be in the same form. Maybe city will be so developed and so many people come from outside, but I don't think so they will be able to change Munshi Premchandji. And there is like the philosophy is never ever going to change because we will just stick to it because it's our culture, it's our tradition. So yeah, maybe people's mentality can be developed, but they will be rooted because the philosophy of Kabir, the philosophy of Ramanandji, the philosophy of Sankaracharya, the ghats is not, it can be like, it will be developed, but it is not going to change. And even there is one word, Alhad in Hindi. Ganga is in the way the Ganga is flowing, it will always be here. So maybe there can be changes in people, but these things is not going to change. And we will never compromise with it also.
So, like the waters of the Ganga, I really feel that, our discussion should not end because it's such a riveting discussion and we have not even touched the surface. But thank you so much, thank you so much for sharing such fascinating perspectives. Thank you so much to the audience, for your inputs, for your sharings. I think it's been a magical evening. And with that, I would like to hand over to Asad.
Thank you, Akshay, for as always, so skillfully anchoring these conversations. This is the 9th edition in this series, but thank you to our panel. I mean, firstly, I'm a little jealous of the food that was described with no visuals given. Now, I actually was while you were doing all this, I was googling the dates of the next Kabira festival. I was supposed to come last year, but I was actually not in the country, so it's in November, I believe, right, Minal? So I've actually earmarked my calendar to in November. I'm going to be going for this festival. So anybody else wants to join me, please join me. And then I'm going to make a list of all these food items and all the places Jeremy has mentioned to go for the walk, so I can kind of digest that food. No, I'm just kidding. But thank you guys for such a fantastic discussion. I mean, this is a series that's very close to our heart, and it's evident why, for the number of people who actually register for this session, to the number of people who actually attend, and also also the questions. I mean, it's overwhelming, and it's so, as Akshay mentioned earlier, it's so endearing to have all these comments and responses and personal anecdotes that people do share with us. We have lots more interesting panels. I mean, for our belief is learning never stops. So at least every week, if not more, we have something planned for you. So our next session is The Artist's Eye, a journey of resilience and resurgence, which is next Thursday, followed by Sassoon's The Global Merchants, which is on Saturday the 5th of March. The next episode in this series is going to be Pondicherry, which will be there in March. But on that note, thank you once again to our wonderful audiences for joining in and being so interactive. I mean, we can't wait to do these things in person very soon, and hopefully we're going to get there. But until then, just stalk us on social media or check out our website, and remember that learning never stops. Thank you very much again to this wonderful panel, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you, guys.
Everyone, thank you.